Thanks for the listen. Thanks for the view. Thanks for the download, all of that. And pay attention to our sponsors on our websites. All right. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, it's not in the 11th hour, but the fact is that we are in this 90-day window of opportunity to shut this thing down. And what has to save this deal is the United States Congress. I was really encouraged yesterday when we were interviewing Donna Edwards, and she was talking about how she is leading the charge with some others on the Democratic side in Congress to kill this deal. And we've spent a lot of time on it, and it's basically down to three areas. The pharmaceutical industry, the price of generic drugs coming into this country. Also, the automobile industry and just how many parts going into a car can be from another country before we can not say it's American. And also the agricultural industry. And I want to take you back to a story that unfolded years ago. This has been a fight in America for some 20 years. And that is country origin of labeling. It's called COOL. It was in the Farm Bill years ago, and it's recently been voted out by the House to make way for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Country original labeling comes from cattle producers in this country, meat producers in this country, who want to make sure that consumers go into that grocery store and they see that it is produced in America, and they know that they can compete against anybody else on the globe, and it will help their industry. Well, now that that's gone, what are they for? Well, obviously they want that labeling, but it would be voluntary labeling. So this takes us to, is this a barrier that's been knocked down? Is this still a big issue? And this reunites me with an old friend of mine who used to be the ag commissioner in North Dakota. He's now the president of the National Farmers Union. Farmers Union, I believe, is in 33 states across the country. They represent farmers. They're a very progressive group. They stay on top of the issues. And Roger Johnson has been the president of that organization for, it has to be at least a decade. Roger, good to have you with us on Ed Schultz News and Commentary.
Ed, great to be back with you.
You bet. I remember those days of fighting for COOL in the Farm Bill. Remember?
Indeed, and it was a decades-long fight. You know, we officially first got it in the Farm Bill in 2002, and then it was never implemented because of opposition from packers that never wanted consumers to know where their meat was coming from. And then we got it reinserted in the 2008 Farm Bill, and then it was implemented, and then, of course, the packers sued, and Canada and Mexico sued under the WTO. And bottom line is we ended up losing that case. And we're, a month or almost 2 months away from when we'll get a final decision from the WTO as to the amount of retaliation. And the way we fix it is because we've lost mandatory country of origin labeling. That's gone. The WTO has basically stricken it. As you indicated, the House has already passed a bill to repeal it. The Senate has not. And the Senate is stuck between two bills. A bill that Chairman Roberts wants, or I shouldn't say a bill because it's not really a bill, but basically it's the same thing that the House did. It's just full repeal on meat products. Mm-hmm. And then Debbie Stabenow, Senator from Michigan, and John Hoeven, Republican Senator from North Dakota, have joined up and offered a voluntary label bill. So it would still repeal mandatory, but then it would say, if anyone wants to put a made in the USA label on a meat product, mm-hmm. it has to come from an animal that's born, raised, and slaughtered in the US.
So Hoeven and Stabenow are counting on American consumers to be concerned about where their meat is produced and what they're going to consume.
Exactly.
And it would be a knowledge issue, not a mandatory.
Exactly.
But it would give them, and this, of course, is where the Canadians and other countries are upset because they want their meat, their beef on our market, and they don't want it labeled because they want to be able to dump product on our market. That takes us into the conversation of currency manipulation, and it could be a real threat to our cattle and beef producers in this country, couldn't it?
Well, it could. I mean, the interesting part about COOL, or country of origin labeling, is that consumers overwhelmingly, we've got over a decade of polling that says 90% plus consumers want to know where their food's coming from.
Absolutely, and it's not just beef; it's all kinds of food. We want to know where it's coming from.
It's everything, but beef in particular, pork, poultry. These are the products that would be impacted by the repeal measure that the House has passed, and it's important that we at least say, if consumers want to know, that they can demand that the packers put a label on that is accurate. And the packers don't want to do that because they want to be able to import product from anywhere in the world.
Cheaper.
Chop it up here, slaughter it here, and if they just slaughter it here, no matter where it comes from, they would be able, under current law, without mandatory country of origin labeling in place, they'd be able to say that's a product of the U.S.
That's right, and give it the USDA stamp, right?
Exactly. I mean, so it's sure, and so then it's that end of story. You know, then they just say that any product, pretty much from anywhere in the world, is going to have a product of the U.S. label if it is slaughtered in the U.S., processed in the U.S.
So we had Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack lobbying the Congress pretty hard this summer to get rid of this bill in the House. Is that correct?
Yes. I don't know if he was lobbying hard to get rid of it, but he actually stated that the Stabenow-Hoven bill would also fix the WTO problem that we have with country of origin labeling. So,
do you believe that? Do you believe that this would fix it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. Because Stabenow and Hoven have worked with the U.S. Trade Representative's Office and with USDA as they crafted this language to make sure that it complied with our WTO trade obligations.
Okay.
It's voluntary. Canada has their own voluntary meat labeling law in the books.
Yeah. Does that work?
Well, I mean, they got it. I don't know if it works or not for them, but they seem to be happy with it, and now they're saying they don't want us to do the same thing.
Okay, so right now, the ag world, the beef producers in America are waiting for the World Trade Organization to come up with a ruling on labeling, correct?
Yeah, they've actually ruled that the mandatory law is illegal under the WTO. So what they're ruling on now is how much damages the Canadians and Mexicans will be able to extract from the U.S. That's the decision that we're awaiting.
And this, of course, is one of the big contentions on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. You've also been on record, Roger Johnson, President of the National Farmers Union, that really TPP is a no-win situation for us, isn't it?
We have been. And it's, you know, the ag groups are generally supportive of TPP because, as a general rule, agriculture ends up with a trade surplus. The problem, and we look at this much more holistically, even if agriculture were to end up with a trade surplus, if the rest of the economy ends up with this deep deficit, then we end up struggling with growth. I mean, right now, the trade deficit that the U.S. faces is 3 points off our GDP. I mean, that is an enormous drag on our economic growth because we export so much less than we import. In TPP, as it's designed right now, what we know about it is that it does not deal with the issue of currency manipulation.
Yeah.
And if you don't deal with currency manipulation, economists have said that currency manipulation is responsible for about half of that trade deficit. If you don't deal with it, all you're doing is you're going to go and sign an agreement with Japan and the rest of the TPP countries, and if the day after you sign it, they end up manipulating their currency and just simply giving themselves an advantage of 2 or 3 percentage points, they have wiped out any advantage we may have gained with TPP.
This would definitely suppress prices in the ag markets.
Well, of course it would.
Because we would be seeing agricultural products being dumped on our market that our producers just couldn't compete with.
What we're faced with today, right now in agriculture, is what a lot of economists call it a high dollar. A high dollar makes it more difficult for us to export products. When other countries manipulate their currency, they in fact make our dollar even higher still. They make our dollar more expensive, their currency cheaper. Therefore, the imports that we buy get cheaper, and the exports that we try to sell to other countries become more expensive, and our deficit simply increases.
Okay. Now, if we say no to Trans-Pacific Partnership, you think that there's going to be a trade credibility issue, an integrity issue in dealing with other countries when it comes to trade. You think that that's a loss leader as well?
I do think there's an issue there. The fact that our country has sort of led the effort on TPP is an indicator of our standing in the world. And if we lead the effort and we negotiate a deal and then we choose not to enter into that deal, I think that does some damage to our credibility. There's no question in my mind that that's the case.
But every lawmaker, just about every lawmaker, Roger, is telling me that this process has been flawed. It's been done in secret. They can't read the deal. It's a Wall Street deal. These negotiators have circumvented American law as far as sovereignty is concerned. So we are at a real crossroads about future trade. We do this deal, there might not need to be another trade deal anywhere else.
And the way we've been negotiating trade deals, that wouldn't be such a bad deal, would it? I mean,
that's very true.
If we quit doing these deals, it might not be such a bad thing because we don't seem to be able to get the formula right. I mean, every deal we do digs our deficit deeper still.
Okay.
What's the point of that?
So as I started at the beginning, the pharmaceutical, the automobile, and the ag community, these are the three big stumbling blocks in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. You think ag is going to be satisfied at the end of the day? You don't think that's going to be a stumbling block, or is it?
I think most of the ag community is going to be promoting or indifferent about the deal.
Okay.
Farmers Union, as a member of the agriculture community, will be actively opposing it. So we're different than the rest of the ag industry, if you will.
Because you look at it holistically about what it's going to do to American jobs.
We very much do. That's exactly right. We look at it holistically. And if you think about this, Ed, I mean, you know this as someone who spent a bunch of your lifetime in North Dakota and Minnesota. These rural communities, the farmers, most farmers end up with off-farm jobs because you have to support your way of life. And when you do trade deals that end up exporting jobs to other countries, what does that do to the availability of jobs in those rural communities that farmers or farmers' wives need in order to survive out there on the farm?
And for clarity to people that don't follow the ag community very much, Roger, bottom line here is that American producers want to make sure that American consumers know what they're getting, because if they have to compete head-to-head against anybody else in the world, American farmers and ranchers believe that they can outdo anybody on the globe when it comes to production, when it comes to technology, when it comes to food safety, and they think that the consumers are going to make wise decisions, and in the long run, the producers will win. That's what this is about. That's what COOL was all about originally.
That's true, especially if you make sure that products that say they're from the U.S., in fact, are from the U.S. And that's the rub in this whole deal.
All right. Roger Johnson, who is the president of National Farmers Union. Hope life is good for you. It's been a long time. Appreciate the connection, and we'll do it again. Thanks, Roger.
You bet. Take care, Ed.
This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary.